It'd be the same system. Oh, right, okay.
I don't know. Just worked it out that way. I suppose the dustbin people worked it out that way.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to this Leisure Services Committee meeting, which is being held on Tuesday the 20th of January. The Woodley Town Council meetings are now recorded, and with the recordings being streamed live, are stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. By virtue of attending the meeting, you are consenting to have your image and audio recorded for this purpose. Of course, if you do not wish for this image and audio to be recorded, then you please do not stay for the meeting. For those in attendance, we're not expecting a fire drill this evening, so if you hear the fire alarm, please head to the nearest fire exit, congregate at the fire assembly point by the Oakwood Centre at the front of Woodford Park. The exits are there and there. Okay, well, I shall start on our agenda. Any apologies?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from councillors Gilder, Nagra and Kennedy.
Thank you very much. I'll go on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations they'd like to make? Okay, thank you very much. Then I will go on to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of November, and to approve those minutes of that meeting, of the Leisure Services meeting that we had, as a true and correct record. Does anyone have any comments before I proceed to a vote? All those in favour, please show their hands. All those against? All those abstaining? Those minutes have been approved. Thank you very much. I will now go on to item 4, which is actions and follow-ups, as recorded on page 3 of this agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note against minute 35, regarding requests for additional funds for youth services, just to note that Strategy and Resources decision to defer consideration on that until after the budget is determined, so not in this current financial year. And also under that item that the Strategy and Resources Committee requested a target youth budget of 30,000 for 26-27. And that's been included in the budget figures later in the agenda. Also under minute 40, just to note, in relation to Weeble Park play equipment, a request for funding will be going to the Strategy and Resources Committee on the 27th of January next week.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Okay, then I will move on to item 5, which is the Woodford Park Leisure Centre Sports and Development Activities report on page 4. Ed.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. As always, a couple of graphs to show you to start with. But I think the biggest thing to note here is that we've had an increase in our membership, as you can see, through the period at 1st of November to the 13th of January. Not unexpected. We've welcomed 66 new members and 48 have cancelled membership in the same time. You can see the reasons why those 48 have cancelled. Just to pick up on the reason for moving to a new gym was because it had a swimming pool. We did have somebody leave because of the booking process for our current exercise classes, which hopefully will be remedied in the not too distant future. And as you can see from the bottom graph, membership income has remained consistent for a fairly lengthy period now, which is good news. A really short update on the leisure management system, which is where I've been spending pretty much all of my time over the last month. It's progressing well. We're still in the development phase at the moment. I'm hoping to see the first real version of it tomorrow afternoon for the first time. At the moment, there's nothing really exciting to report other than that we're sending a lot of spreadsheets back and forth whilst we carry on building the system, putting in all of our charges, making sure that it follows all of our booking rules and things like that. In April, which is the next Leisure Services meeting, I'll probably have a completely different update for you, and hopefully everything will be live and working well. So in that meeting, I'll provide more exciting details, basically. This next section is just really preemptive, ahead of us talking about the charges later on. As always, I put my charges together and compare them with other nearby facilities to make sure that we're competitive in the market, but also that the charges are appropriate to the quality of facility that the council provides. I've also considered the fact that, of course, we need to increase income from our leisure services, but I've done so with the knowledge that too much could actually turn people away. There's a couple of notes here that I just want to run through, and again, we can talk about these later on as they come up. But the first one is that I've recommended removing a couple of rates simply because they're not used anymore. They haven't been used for a number of years, and it just allows us to tidy up the charges sheet. One of those is the concessionary rate for the committee rooms. That hasn't been used for over 4 years now, and we don't need the rate, so we're just going to hopefully you'll approve removing it. And similarly, I've recommended removing the premium rate specific to the games room and tea room. For a bit of context there, we used to have the premium rate when we used to host functions, late night functions, and open the centre out of hours. For most inquiries now we get for out of hours functions, we refer them to the open centre or the community halls now, so the rates aren't used much anyway. However, the games room and tea room rate is half of the function room, so I've recommended keeping the premium rate for the function room but removing half of the room, because I cannot think of a situation where I'd open out of hours for just half of the room. It wouldn't make sense. The cost would barely cover the cost of the staff, so I've recommended removing that too. The biggest change I'm recommending is in relation to racket attack, which currently we charge £1 per person per hour. I recommend changing that to a flat £5 fee for a booking, so regardless of the number of people that play. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is because it will help prevent misuse when we allow online booking. So an online booking per person is traditionally difficult to manage because you don't know how many people are actually booking. But also because it will help us increase income from a very popular scheme. Racket Attack is full almost every time we run it now. We haven't put the price up for whatever actually since we've launched the scheme, and it feels like a good opportunity to both increase income slightly whilst also allowing a discounted rate on facility bookings through the school holidays. And finally, I know this has been spoken about in previous council meetings before, I'm proposing a £1 increase per month across all of our gym memberships. This will be the first time we've done this since membership, since we've had a gym, which dates back to the 1st of January 2017, so it is potentially overdue. There's just a little side note here that I'm hoping will be approved as well, that I'm recommending we only do this once our new leisure management system is up and running successfully. That's quite simply because of the complexities behind how direct debits are managed. You have to give plenty of notice of changes, you have to make sure you communicate clearly, and because we don't actually know how the system works yet, we've not been trained on it yet, I'm very reluctant to increase the price at the same time as launching the system. I can see there being significant risk with that in relation to direct debits not being successfully carried over through providers. So I put a date in here of the 1st of September 2026. Now, of course, it could be earlier than that, it could be later than that. But what I can do when we get to April is provide this committee with another more detailed update about how that process is going and when we can expect that increase to come into effect. And just finally, a little note some people may have seen if they were watching the news through December. We were featured through the Sport in Mind Souls of the Season campaign, which in effect is a giving tree. So we agreed to host Sport in Mind's Giving Tree this Christmas. Customers or members of the public could walk up to the tree and scan a QR code and choose to donate some money. They were then encouraged to leave a note on the tree, a note of encouragement. And BBC South came along, visited the station on the 15th of December, interviewed a couple of participants in the coach, filmed a couple of shots of people playing table tennis and badminton. And yeah, I think it was only about a 30-second or 60-second segment on the news, but it was on there, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the article's still online, but the video's been taken down. So I think if you go on BBC South, you can find it. It's only a short article, but it kind of gives you an idea.
Website, isn't it? Little link.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. Does anyone have any questions? Good. Then in that case, I shall then go on to item 6, which is parks and buildings, Kevin, on page 6.
Thank you, Chair. Just to start, Woodford Park Leisure Centre. Drainage clearance works are complete there. That was quite a large and very important piece of work. The surveys recommend regular jet cleaning of the existing pipe work, which is pitch fibre pipe, which is probably over 60 years old, and the recommendation is that we plan for replacement of that as it's exceeded its lifespan already. So we're looking at costings for a replacement programme, which would be developed as part of the future refurbishment plans. The football wing, changing room ceilings have been repaired on a sort of temporary basis to ensure safety and continued use pending investment decisions going forwards. The lake island vegetation has been come back as part of the routine annual maintenance ahead of the bird nesting season. The team's also carried out vegetation clearance of overgrown areas to improve access in certain areas and tackle issues with rats, where we've had some concerns raised from members of the public, but also preserving the wildlife habitats where we can. It's just a matter of getting that balance right. The team carried out extensive gritting around the park, and we received some very positive feedback, specifically from Park Run, who were able to continue running their events here during the very cold weather where they hadn't been able to elsewhere, and the team had done a lot of work to do that. So yeah, absolutely. The Bowls Green seasonal preparation will begin slightly earlier this year at the request of the club, so the team are on that. We had a couple of dead trees removed by the contractor up at the allotment site, and the community halls, Coronation Hall, was redecorated, the main hall that is, over the Christmas period, and we are looking at some improvement options for the halls, which are proving quite difficult to heat through winter periods. There's not much insulation there, very old glazing, and we're kind of pumping heat into them, and it's going up into the sky, frankly, and a lot of that time is quite hard to manage. So we're looking at some.
How old is that hall, out of interest?
Chapel Coronation. 52, no, 53.
Yeah.
52, 53.
I wonder if that's something that we could consider as part of the Woodford Park.
We're looking, there might be, I'm looking at potential for funding for if we can look at energy efficiencies and things like that. There might be some other funding pots for it, as well. So yeah, we're having a look at that. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make on other than noting their report? Okay, thank you very much. And we will take item 7, which is allotments on page 7. Kevin.
Thank you. So this report is from our Democratic Support and Allotments Officer, Kieran, and we felt that since he's moved into that role, it would be helpful and appropriate for the committee to receive a more full report on allotment matters. So in summary, there are currently 75 people on the waiting list. That list is reviewed in February to speed up allocations. So what Kieran does is go back through that list and make sure that everyone who's on there is actively still waiting for a plot. Yeah, and there are 39 vacant plots at present. So that turnover that happens this time of the year when the rents go out. The Allotment Tenants Association has volunteered to trim and cover many vacant plots over this period to make them easier to re-let, which is really helpful. And Kieran's developed a new questionnaire for tenants to enable us to match tenants with plots a little better, so we can establish basically whether a tenant's prepared to take on a slightly more challenging plot or not, if they may be able to not skip the queue exactly, but that there are some tenants who wouldn't be able to take on a particularly challenging plot, so that's worked quite well in the past. Rent renewal letters were issued at the end of November. Most tenants have now paid, and chasing of overdue ones is underway. The Allotment Tenants Association has been very active with recycling initiatives, managed bonfire, working very closely with tenants. There is a separate activity report, Appendix A, which again we will include going forwards. That's really helpful, and that partnership's working very well. Plot inspections policy. The latest inspections were concluded in early December and did result in 11 termination notices at that point. The next inspections are scheduled for May, and officers and volunteers have developed a new, clearer plot inspections policy, which is appended to this report, Appendix B, and that's for members to consider at this meeting for approval. That document, and Kieran did a lot of work with that and spent a lot of time talking to the Tenants Association about that, so that we've got a really clear methodology for how we deal with plot inspections and when they result in termination, but also in order to offer appropriate advice as we go and be really open and transparent with tenants about how that works, and give us a bit firmer footing and be able to manage it a little better, and give officers more structure in dealing with those issues, which can sometimes be quite subjective and complicated. But I think that's a really good document to help us going forward. So that's an item here for. Yeah, he's done a lot of work there.
Does any councillor have any comments they'd like to make? David?
Have you had any queries come back from them or applications to keep chickens or rabbits?
I'm not sure. I will find out. I will need to check with Kieran. I don't think we had any further ones in. We'd had one at a time. So
Ferrets, hopefully, for the rats. Yvonne, did you have
Just be interesting to know, because the work and effort that was put into that.
to developing that, yeah. I've only got one comment really, is that I'm really pleased that there's such a full and detailed inspection policy. That's been, obviously, I think a lot of work has gone into that to define what I call a really clear service level for tenants to, and I think there's enough flexibility in here actually to allow some subjectivity and what have you. So I'm really pleased about that. Of course, we can update the policy if it becomes necessary, but I think, you know, as a first policy, this is a really good document. I'd like to thank Kieran and the Tenants Association. They put in that. Sure, it'll be a great success. And on that note, I'd like to ask for a vote to approve that policy, please. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? That policy is passed, Kevin. Thank you. Excellent. Item 8 on the agenda, which is charges for 26-27 financial year, and to consider those proposed charges in reports starting on page 16. Kevin.
Thank you. So the proposed charges are detailed in that budget appendix. As Ed mentioned earlier, the charges for Woodford Park Leisure Centre activities, Ed reviews individually and are benchmarked against similar providers to ensure competitiveness and value for money. The community halls and memorial ground slightly different, and as with the allotments, which were approved earlier in the year, use a standard charging structure based on a standard non-Woodley resident rate, with discounts then applied, those being 35% for Woodley residents and 58% for charities, which is consistent with last year. For 26-27, the standard rate charges for those other than for the leisure centre, so the ones for the halls, have got an increase of 9.3%, which comprises 4.3% in line with the October RPI figure, and an additional 5% uplift as agreed at the Strategy and Resources Committee meeting on the 16th of December. This approach aims to balance consistency with the other services, affordability for users, but also reflect the rising operational costs that we have. It also reflects improvements to the halls that we've effected already with new kitchens and decor, and that other investment that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it reflects the investment that we're making in the new booking system, for example, which I think is going to produce some excellent effective efficiencies, hopefully. It surely will. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Does any council have any questions about this? Carol?
Yeah, could I just ask about, well, there's no pages, the Coronation and Chapel Hall charges, they're presumably hourly rates.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And does that apply to the cupboards? The second section down under Chapel Hall. Are we really charging £38 an hour for a cupboard?
No, that's for the year.
I-
I can make that
I
clear.
think we need to make that clear, yeah. So, I was a little bit worried. I thought it must be a very big cupboard.
But yes, it was a good call, Carol. Thank you. Okay, in that case, I'd like members to note the report and to recommend the revised budget as set out to be approved. Can I have all our councillors approve that by a show of hands, please?
Is that for the proposed charges or the revised budget or?
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead.
Oh,
That's.
sorry, we're still
Let
on
me
charges.
wind back. We're still on charges, aren't we? Right. Okay. So let me rewind. I'd like to set a motion to approve the leisure services charges for 26-27. And can I have a show of hands, please, to approve that? Those against?
No, sorry, I'm confused there. You left me behind a little bit. What are we approving there?
We're approving the leisure services charge for 26-27, which is item 8 on the agenda, which is report. basically.
that.
So in the Yvonne, in the chart, in the appendix, so it's the
Yeah, in the appendix,
The
you see all the charges broken out.
Does that include the reduced youth services?
No, this is just service charges. So the charges that for using facilities at Woodford Leisure Centre and halls.
The rates basically for booking the halls,
Yes, all right,
that sort of thing.
that's fine then.
Is
Yeah,
that
I'm in
right?
favour.
Okay, I'll start again then. All those in favour of the leisure services charges as set out on the 26-27 in the appendix be approved. Have a show of hands, please. Those against? Those abstaining? Kevin, those are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, we get to the next lot of stuff, which is the item 9, which is the revised estimates, not charges, for 25-26, to be considered on page 17. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. So the revised estimates for 25-26 are included in that budget appendix and have been reviewed in detail by the service managers to take account of actual costs at this point in the year and forecast to the end of the year. Total income there is forecast at a little over 692,000, which is around 2,600 below the original budget, mainly due to some reduced income from the community halls and also the grass football due to the essential maintenance work and less pitch availability there. The leisure centre income remains strong and above budget. Expenditures forecast there at 1,101,953. That's around 9,700 lower than budgeted. And I think there's a typo actually in the report that suggests that's higher. It's not, it's lower, that expenditure. And that includes the cost for the essential remedial works to the pitches. So the overall net expenditure in leisure is expected to be 409,736 against the budget of 416,857, so a little lower overall. I don't know if there's any questions on that, Chair.
Okay. Following up from the meeting we had in December, is that sort of like gap likely to close a little bit, do you think?
We think that's pretty accurate to the end of the year.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Well, my question was regarding the youth services, because I have to state that I'm not happy about the proposal to reduce what we had planned to spend on youth services by 25%. I think in view of the fact that we haven't provided any youth services in Woodley for 5 years, we on the youth.
Yvonne, I think that might be covered in the next item, which is on budget.
Okay.
On item 10. Is that all right?
Oh,
So,
It will be,
budget
yeah, so that's.
Yeah,
Not
we-
revised
next,
estimates, budget estimates,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, yeah. If we
That's
cover
the-
that in the
Okay.
next item, Yvonne, that'd
Okay.
be good.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
You nearly got there, one, Ken.
what's that?
You nearly got there.
Yeah, I know.
Nearly got there, don't worry.
It's,
Well,
yeah,
you can have your say, don't
it's
worry.
confusing.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I'll take the budget revised estimates 25-26 that Kevin has talked about on page 17. Members to note the report and members to recommend the budget estimates for 25 as set out in the appendix as approved. So can I have a show of hands to approve that, please, for the budget estimates?
I don't know.
Are you not sure, Yvonne?
I'm not sure, no.
So that's the revised estimates for the year we're in, so it's the projected.
current year.
Right,
The current
okay.
year coming to the end of this
Okay,
financial year.
so that's, yeah, before we've
Yeah.
made the cuts then, yeah,
that's-
okay,
That's what we're doing currently.
yeah, okay.
All right, all those,
Yeah.
show of hands, all those
Mr.
approved.
Chairman, I think the difficulty is that we haven't got down here the recommendations. So I'm looking at item 10, which is the budget estimate. We've looked at the revised estimates, but I'm not clear as one isn't as to
I
what.
think if you read the agenda, and I do get where you're coming from, so you got charges for 26, 27, you've got the revised estimates for this year, which is 25, 26, which is item 9,
Yeah.
and then item 10 is the budget estimate for the next financial year, which is the clean ones,
So
yeah.
we're having a vote now on the revised on the white.
Yeah, so we're doing revised estimates for this financial year, 25,
Just so
26,
I'm sure.
which is on page 17. Is that all right? Yeah, are we happy with that? Yvonne, you?
I haven't got pages. Have I?
Sorry, it's page 17 of the agenda. rather than
Agenda,
the
so I'm looking at the
appendix.
agenda because,
okay.
and then I'll refer it to what's in the
Got it?
pack. Sorry if I wasn't clear enough.
3 sheets of paper.
That's all right.
Yeah,
Yvonne, are you all right about that?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, can I take that then too? Can I take the vote to approve that, please, motion? All those in favour, please show of hands. All those against? All those abstaining? Okay, those revised budget estimates for 25-26 have been approved. Thank you, Kevin. Right. Now we get on to the other stuff. Okay, so I shall go to item 10 on the agenda, which is the budget estimates for the next financial year, 26-27, which is starting on page 18.
Yeah.
Are you all on page 18? Okay, Kevin.
So the income forecast here for 2026-27 in Leisure a little over 751,000, which is just shy of 59,000 higher than the revised estimate for this year. That's driven by proposed charges increases, which we've already talked about, and some targeted growth in income across services, which was also discussed at that last strategy and resources meeting. Expenditure, you can see there, is expected to rise by around 148,000 higher than the 25-26 revised estimates. So as a result, you can see an estimated net expenditure there of around 499,000. One of the things that is highlighted in the budget there, which I mentioned at the start, is following on from that strategy and resources meeting and the point that Yvonne just made and we'll probably want to speak to in a moment, was that the S&R committee had recommended that the youth services budget would be targeted at 30,000 in order to meet those other pressures within the budget that was reviewed at that time, and that's how it's been. That's the level it's been set at in these estimates.
Yeah, okay. Is it time
Yvonne,
for me to
please,
speak? Yeah.
say what you'd like to say.
Do I need to press my button?
You should.
Oh, it's already on.
It's already
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, no, I'm not happy with strategy and resources recommendation that we reduce our ambition for the young people of Woodley. I think however we got to this position where there's a shortfall in the budget, it's not the fault of the young people who we've woefully neglected for the last 5 years, and we worked hard on the youth committee to have an ambitious plan going forward for young people, particularly young vulnerable people in Woodley, and I just don't think it's fair to expect them to take the brunt of this deficit with a 25% cut in our ambition for them, when it's through no fault of their own, and I think it's short-sighted of us, really. And, you know, I was at the strategy and resources meeting when a lot of this was discussed about how we could remedy it by raising the precept. And I think I'd reiterate a point I made there, that by raising the precept by the cost of a postage stamp to families in Woodley, we wouldn't be facing having to make these difficult decisions. So that's my feelings.
Yvonne, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
First of all, the precept recommended increase has worked out about 9.75%. So it's somewhat more than the price of a postage stamp. Unfortunately, I sympathise that this council has been known for the work it's done for the youth going back 20 odd years when we first appointed Jack to take over the youth management, and they did a marvellous job under a contract. COVID messed things up. Excuse me. COVID messed things up somewhat. And we had a hard time as a council coming out of COVID. This year particularly, as the way I see the budget, we're looking at year one to get ourselves on a basis of moving forward. We've got to work on a strategy going forward, which is going to be operative, not only for the life of this council, but future councils to come, so that they've got a basis to operate on. We've seen, but the major increases have come really from the increase in public sector salaries, the introduction of the extra 1.7% national insurance tax liability on employers, and of course, to a very large extent, the pension increase for workers. On top of that, you've got to build in budget to look at what your expenses are going to be in the coming few years. It's pointless trying to look forward further than 3 years, and I think we'll actually look forward 2 years to 27, 28. And the knock-on effect of all that, with the situation worldwide at the moment, our expenses are going up like that, and our income is only going like that. So we're getting a widening of balance throughout. What this year's move by cutting back on the budget is about is to get us back on a standard footing, so that we know in future where we actually stand and can move forward. It is unfortunate that we can't increase that budget beyond £30,000, but this is the current year. So all we've in effect done is leave the budget the same as we had it last year and the year before, of 30,000. So we've limited it. We haven't reduced the budget.
No, but if I was getting this paid the same as I was 2 years ago, I'm getting less, aren't I? Because my money doesn't go as far. You're not taking account of
there's
inflation.
a lot of people out there who aren't getting nowhere near what they were getting 2 years ago. And I can think of a lot of pensioners.
Dave, thanks for that comment. And Yvonne, I'll hold you for a second. June, you wanted to say something?
Well, just a couple of points and a kind of question. I don't really want to get into how we got into this model at this meeting. I think it's more appropriate for strategy resources, but I will point out.
Can I interrupt? Can June be heard on the recording or should she come up to a?
No, I can hardly hear her.
Yeah, why don't you come forward, June? There you go.
Do you want to?
Yes,
Oh, there's a seat there. You could
Yes.
share.
Thank you, Carol.
What I was going to, what I was saying.
Switch the microphone on first, yeah.
No, it's on, yeah.
Well, as I said, we're not really going to get into a discussion about budgets tonight and how we got ourselves into this pickle, because I think it's more appropriate for strategy and resources. But just as a kind of point of information, I mean, this budget was, or last year's budget was set in January, and we knew all about the national insurance rises and whatever that were coming. So we should have taken account of that then. It's a bit disingenuous of say, oh, what a surprise that was. That's kind of our job, isn't it, to set the budget accordingly. I'll just reinforce Yvonne's point about the effect of inflation. Inflation's running, or the November figures, last one's out for RPI with 3.8%. So if maintaining that value at 30 grand, you're already £1,140 adrift. That's a real-time cut. So what I'm interested to know is when you guys set an aspiration of £40,000 for next year, and now we're dropping back to 30. What are we going to lose from what you had in mind? What's that £10,000 actually represent? And the other point I would make is, we talked about percentages and increases to the precept, which is kind of limited help, I think, in terms of the fact that we're not talking about vast amounts of money. So going from the report that went to SNR on the 16th of December, SNR 2925, it says 1% precept increase will give us approximately 11.5 grand extra income for the council. So on Band D, you're talking about an extra £1 a year to make up that £10,000 that we're going to lose. Personally, I think people of Woodley would be happy to pay that. But I would like just to know what it is we're going to lose for not having that extra 10,000.
I think, as the clerk has said, by not increasing the budget, we are maintaining the current new youth services provision that we are currently providing into the next financial year. That's the intention.
But what did you have in mind when you set it at 40?
I wish Kay was here actually to give you more detail on that, because I don't think we had planned anything particularly to spend that additional money on for next year.
No, I think we had. It was all
Yes.
costed.
Yvonne,
Kevin?
I
couldn't-
Did they have a list, a breakout?
There was, yes, sorry, I'm just trying to find, I don't have the detail to hand.
5,000 of it from memory was for a leadership.
Well, that's separate on this.
That's
That's
separate.
all. We've already lost
Separate.
that.
That's not part of that. Because if you wanted to maintain what you did last year, then surely you should inflation match it, if nothing else.
To be honest with you, Yvonne, from my perspective, I think we've got a very tough budget this year, or for next year, that we've got to try and balance. And we could have faced the fact we could have actually stopped our youth services entirely, given the fact that actually we're not actually mandated to provide youth services in Woodley anyway. So we're doing this because we want to do it.
Except that,
And
if you looked
therefore-
at that big report that we had for SNR, went through all the possible cuts, and one of the recurring themes was the issue of reputational damage, in that it makes the council look as though they don't know what they're doing. And frankly, with my other hat on as a Woodley resident, I'd be kind of asking questions about why this council has spent over 2 years arguing the toss about this, has produced a very comprehensive strategy, and as Yvonne said, an ambitious strategy, and 6 months in are saying, whoa, we're not sure we can afford this. I mean, if nothing else, it was a colossal waste
I don't think we're not saying we
officer
can't.
time.
It's not that we can't afford it. All we're saying is that we can't afford to increase the budget that we had originally set for it. So we had an aspiration to increase it from 30 to 40,000 pounds to create additional services for 25, 26, 27. But actually what we're saying now is looking at the budget for next year, we don't think we can afford to do that. So we're not cutting the service, as David said. All we're doing is continuing what we currently have.
There's
Now,
a choice about what we prioritise.
yeah, it is a choice.
But also that question then about inflation. So inflation is not going to affect the youth services budget then. So we can carry on with less real money because of the effect
We
of
can carry
inflation.
we can carry on providing youth services for the budget that we've currently got.
And again, it would be really grateful if we could find out before S&R what you had in
What we're
mind to
not
spend
having.
that 10
Yeah,
grand
you
on.
can't really
Or
make
if
a
I-
decision until you see what we're not providing.
Kevin, will you just circulate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can't find it, circulate it.
Without,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've been part of those youth meetings and it's all very well and great, all these things we want to do, and I would love to do a lot more,
Yes, all right.
but you've got to do it within a budget. And sometimes the budget that's come along has kind of flawed a lot of what we wanted to do, to be perfectly honest. And also, you can't keep charging the residents increased council tax to try and fund it, because everybody's struggling.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through all this, and I'm not going to go into the economic reasons why that's happening, but I think it's all pretty obvious. We know why it is happening.
Yeah.
I know that
Very
David
good.
here mentioned about increased national insurance on employers, which is a bit of a diabolical tax, to be perfectly honest. That's a tax on jobs. It stops people actually taking on people, rather than not taking on people. We want to try and create jobs for people.
Tax on.
But it's a general thing, not just Woodley Town. It's across the
It
board.
affects everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
I can read out, excuse me, what those items were that made up the 40,000 originally, if that's helpful.
Just the extra 10, particularly, or.
And no, it's what makes up the total.
Right.
Or I can circulate that. So you've got 9,450 youth club Friday evenings, 5,280 leadership training course, 11,310 was the diversion and disruption project for school holidays. 8,964 was Rising Futures after school coaching sessions, and 5,000 was holiday activities, and so the HAF programme in school holidays for around 250 kids, which was the kind of additional bits. It was made up of those elements. I can send that round, so it's not as clear as there's something for 10. It's within
That'd be good,
that.
thank you.
I take your point, Jen, about the 30,000, but it is not being reduced. It's being left at the same level. We've had to make some very, very serious cuts. I mean, Carol, you were at the planning meeting when we did all the community grants, and we had to reduce that down to 30,000 from 56,000 of applications. It was very, very difficult to make those cuts. But the whole idea behind this is if the council's not in a bad way, but we have a legal duty to be able to continue running the council if anything untoward happens for a period of time. The general period is 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, let's just do any of that.
Which
David.
means we have
What
to
we
keep
actually need to
this
focus on here
Yeah,
is
but-
this leisure
But
stuff.
because, I mean, I mentioned the salary increases as an aside, as one thing, but expenses generally are rising at an alarming rate, and our income over the period has not risen at an equivalent rate. So what we are doing to fund our exercise is using reserves year on year, which over the next 3 years will finish on
Again,
the
David, this is
estimated
S&R, and what we're just wanting to talk about here is this one budget line item in leisure, which is within your compass. This is not an S&R meeting. And I mean, we could get into quite an interesting discussion about where the budget is. And we're talking about, increases people have to put up with. But the entire council, we agreed not to put the precept up at all last year. And we were told at the time by officers in the meeting, it was minuted, that we would have to put up the precept by at least 10% this year. We knew that. So sort of bleating about it now is a bit late in the day. But I would urge this committee just to look at this one particular line, which we'd like some information about, and not that I've got any sway here, but
June,
I concur
I'm
with
going to
Yvonne.
ask, yeah, I think you've made your point, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, though. Carol?
Yes, we've got this sort of lecture about economics, which I think we all know where we are in the world. We also know where our budget, the town council budget is, and we know how difficult it is for everybody concerned. I think the point being made that this line on leisure services, it's not about increasing leisure services. It's about not decreasing it. It's decreasing because of it's not keeping up with the cost of living. So it's all about that decrease, not an increase. We're not asking for anything extra, but just that this money that equates to devaluing that leisure services budget should be looked at. Once we get the details, maybe that might give us more idea, but it's not going to solve the problem.
I'll be honest with you, from my point of view, I am disappointed, very disappointed that we haven't got the £40,000 that we requested from S&R. But I do take the point that the £30,000, which to be fair has been a budget that's been set for the last 2 years. But yes, I'm just going to come on to say that. So let me finish. But with the impact of inflation, that 30,000 isn't as much as it is. So we're not keeping we're not keeping up with inflation in terms of that budget. So I don't know how you will feel about this, but I would, if we're unable to have the full 40,000, I think we should go back to S&R. We should ask them for an inflationary increase against our 30,000, so that we can at least keep pace to provide the existing service with an increased inflation.
I'm happy to make that a proposal if there's a second.
No, I'll make the proposal. Thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands for that proposal, please?
Thank you, President.
Right, Robert.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I might have misheard. I then didn't think Strategy and Resources had come to a conclusion to say that you can only have £30,000 yet.
They haven't, no.
No, they
So
haven't.
that's the other
They
thing.
want us
They
to-
have not.
they
They
want
want
us
us
to
to discuss
agree.
it.
Yeah.
I'd like the
Can I-
30,000.
What was discussed at S&R was in the tangible actions that could be taken. So the areas that could be identified for those savings. This was one of them.
Yeah.
So that was what we were tasked as officers to go away and
think
then
this
work
is
a budget
what-
out to. But you're right, that's not an instruction.
So, right, thank you, Kevin. So then I'm mindful then to say that perhaps the committee should request that S&R looks at keeping it at £40,000, but we would need to put in substantive reasons why it should remain that amount. So we can keep driving the youth services forward. It's a difficult situation because we haven't actually spent any money on youth services. Last year it was given away as grants. So it is a difficult thing to do, and it's going to be a tough ask of the S&R to agree that, I believe. But I think this committee today should actually ask for that £40,000 and give the examples that June gave. It's £1 a year, that sort of thing. I think it is important to the residents of Woodley.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Can I throw something else into the equation, Darren?
If you're quick, yes.
Yep, I'll be quick. there's one glaring item on the leisure expenditure, and I'm throwing this out for people to think about. Having had a great deal of uproar some 8 years ago over the installation of the toilet, we're now spending 10,000 a year out on the maintenance of the toilet, producing £150 in income. Can we as a council really continue with that expense? Or is it time to give thought to doing away with the rainbow toilet?
So just to give Yvonne and others a little bit of perspective, we always had toilets in Woodley Town Council in this car park here. And when the Lidl, or was it Aldi, I can't remember now, when that was put in, they got rid of the toilets to make way for that. And then they provided a sum of money to resupply those toilets in Woodley Precinct. And it took many years to do it for all sorts of reasons, which I won't go into here. But eventually, and there were all sorts of alternative schemes that were lined up, you know, restaurants, the library, this centre here providing toilets and such and such. But so eventually we provided some public toilets at the other end of the precinct, and they were installed some years ago. And David's right, we've been paying £10,000 a year for £150 in income, which means that hardly anybody is using it, but we're spending a lot of money to maintain and supply it. So that does beg the question as to really, is that a good use of our budget? Money, but we've got other, maybe more important, quite frankly, other items in the agenda that we'd like to do.
Is that something we've got say over then?
Is it in our budget?
Is it budget?
It is in our budget, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a strategy and resources consideration there, but that's something if
So maybe what we do, rather than make that proposal that I just made, maybe what we do is we go back to strategy and resources. They would like to keep our £40,000. We'd like to stop providing for public toilet in Woodley. Save the money on the maintenance because no one's using it, and therefore put that money back into youth services. Does everybody feel more comfortable about that?
I mean, quite honestly, £150 a year is 20p to use that toilet, so it's being used twice a day.
Yeah. There are so many shops and services in Woodley that provide public toilets anyway. It almost seems like it's an expense that we don't really need to make.
I've never used that toilet.
Exactly, and £150 a year.
Coffee
I mean, I don't know how many people a month that is. That sounds a very low. That sounds a very low number to me.
I mean, it might be inconvenient to some people.
Literally. Right, can we make that suggestion back to strategy and resources?
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest we don't say that nobody uses it?
No, I didn't say that.
No.
I'm just saying that.
That's what
Well, very few people are using it, obviously, by the rate the income that's coming in.
And we should consider not why, it's obviously why those people are using it, but there is a need. So I would hate it if we threw everything out and then we didn't look at that need. So I'm sure that would be considered.
So that's a proposal to keep the 40k for youth services and consider the ongoing funding for the public toilets.
Yes,
Okay, and have a seconder for that?
Yes,
David.
I'll second that.
And can we have a vote on that, please?
All those in favour of that recommendation? Those all against?
Thank you.
Those all abstaining? Thank you. That's been approved. Great discussion. Thank you, everyone. Okay, then I will move on to item 11, which is to note the report from the Friends of Woodford Park on page 19. Does anyone have any questions or comments from the report? Kevin, any additional feedback from you on that?
Only to note there's a comment there relating to the entrance roadway. That's probably the wrong term for it, from Western Avenue, which is obviously has some history to it. Just by way of update, that is something that Strategy and Resources had asked me to pick back up again. So I'm doing so from a legal perspective, and we're seeing what we can do in the shorter term in terms of some temporary repair to it. We have, as of this week, purchased a bit of equipment which might enable us to do that, because up until this point we've not had a means to do that other than manually anyway. So we'll be looking to do something with that.
And what would they do? Would they
basically fill the gaps and pack it down and effect a temporary repair.
Effect a temporary repair. So it's
Yeah. which we have done in the past, but again, as I said, it's been a manual effort. But
manual effort
we
to
bought
do
a
that.
digger, which might
be make that a lot
more up
easier
to
to
the
do
top.
ourselves. All right,
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much.
Carol's got
Carol.
Yes, so there's a huge pile of stones up at the allotment site, which was used for filling in, and obviously didn't need all of it. It seemed to me that shoveling, it's not as simple as that, but shoveling some of that into the holes would actually, so I'm really pleased to hear that something is happening. I know the ownership has always been a problem, but it'll carry on being a problem, and I think as nearby owners of that area, that using that area, that we ought to do something about it.
Good. Thank you, Carol.
Chair,
Yes, Robert.
I'm pleased to hear that something's being done to this access road, because I know it does cause an awful lot of consternation amongst residents, and also our online presence might not be coming across as at best it might wish to be. My big concern is there is liability. So if we as a council undertake repairs to this area and somebody goes arse over apex, whose responsibility does it then become? And I do think there should be a note of caution over taking on this area or possibly doing works to this area. It might have repercussions, shall we say.
Take your point, Robert, because obviously if we do repair it, then are we inferring that we are taking responsibility for its health and safety and therefore become liable for any accident or anything like that if we don't own it, for example?
Well,
So we have to be a little bit careful.
we do, and
I
we'll
mean,
seek further advice
did-
on that from
I
insurers.
did send you a letter, Kevin, with some comments on that. If we can prove that we've actually used that area of land for 12 years, then it is possible to put in an application to court to claim that land. But there is a great deal of difficulty in that particular spot
Yeah.
because of all the cars that are.
I mean, the only other thing
I believe you have to demonstrate that you've been able to control access to it,
Correct.
i.e.
Yeah.
it would be gates.
And maintain it. I mean, we have.
Could we
put
close that
down-
entrance, for example? Would that be an option? Could we close that entrance, stopping the public from using
And
it?
that's where I need some advice, because actually you're taking some action on
I know that
some
sounds a
land
bit
that you
counterintuitive.
don't own.
And I wouldn't want to do that, but I mean, that might be an option we might have to really consider, so. But let's get an update. Maybe you can do an update by email to us.
Yes, there's also access to the garages behind. There's that access is also to garages along Western Avenue as well.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a separate part of land, it's split off separately. The bit at the back of the houses is actually a separate
Do
parcel
you know, I
of
need to
land
walk
which
down
is
there and have a look,
registered.
actually. I haven't been down there for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, just a really simplistic one. I mean, how much is that entrance used compared to the others? I don't know what the answer to that is, so.
By
that-
pedestrians for the park, do you mean, or?
Well, by anybody really,
Anyone
so.
driving.
Quite a bit,
just
yeah.
find it- If it's used quite a bit, then maybe
Yeah,
it should
council
be kept going.
vehicles use it, it's used a lot for people parking for the industrial estate
Yeah.
and people dropping off kids for the school.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
it's quite busy.
Yeah, sometimes. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll move on to item 12, which is future agenda items. Okay, and I go on to item 13, which is publicity and website. Anyone with any suggestions for us? Okay, in that case, thank you all very much. And I close the meeting at just coming up to 9 o'clock.